Like I said, I think Ibaka is going to be a key piece on a championship team. But that's the one thing. First of all, if James does go to the Nets, they're going to give up all their young talent. So they're going to have to give up Dinwiddie. They're going to have to give up Karis LeVert.
Yeah.
Probably Allen. That's why you
for
got
sure.
DeAndre there.
But that's going to be the biggest thing for a lot of teams. If they do all these trades, a lot of teams we going to see what organizations or what management is good at filling our rosters, because that's going to be big this season.
You got to think. Brooklyn already went it all in one time with the win now with the KG and Paul Pierce experiment. Obviously, these guys are much younger and in their primes. But, I mean, if you got a chance to get a James Harden, you got to do it.
You got to do it.
Steve Nash over there. You got D'Antoni over there now, too.
Yeah.
But the one thing that the Rockets have in their favor is they don't have to trade him.
Neither do they have to trade Russ either.
They don't have to trade Russ either. And seeing what we've been hearing, because we've been talking to, some people, some sources. I guess we're those kind of guys. Now we get sources. It wasn't the Paul Silas situation. Steve Silas. You know, they support Steve Silas. What we were hearing was it was just the management and ownership not consulting with, especially James. James has been there. James put them on the map.
Right.
You know what I mean? So not consulting with your two stars on hiring the GM and the first GM leaving, it just kind of got messy because it sounds like James and Russ felt like they're kind of left out of the mix.
I've played 3, almost 4 years solid with San Antonio, and every move that was made, from starting the lineup to trades, Tim Duncan was involved.
You have to.
You have to include your star players because they are the guys that you rely on the most. And we have to reiterate this. It's not because of Stephen Silas. We played with Stephen Silas. Everybody loves Stephen Silas. And everybody's happy he's finally getting his opportunity that he should have been got. But James and Russ are not happy with just not being a part of the decision making.
It's not moving right.
I guarantee you Bron is a part of everything that goes on.
No question.
You know what I mean? So why not James?
So James possibly, we're hearing James possibly to Brooklyn, but we're also hearing James possibly to the 76ers for Ben Simmons and a pick.
I like that for Philadelphia. I don't like that for Houston.
No.
I don't like that for Houston at all.
No.
You know, Houston
Especially
has.
if Russ has to stay, and that's neither of their strong suits. I don't think that's a good move. I mean, as much as I love Ben Simmons, where I do like Ben Simmons at, and we heard about this earlier.
Golden State.
Can you imagine Ben Simmons to Golden State?
What's starting five? Name that starting five.
Steph. Clay,
Clay,
Wiggins.
Wiggins wouldn't be there. He'll go on that trade.
Oh yeah, the Wiggins and probably what Pascal's his name.
The pick.
And the pick.
Yeah.
Will go. So you're right. So it would be Steph, Clay, find a three, Draymond, and Ben Simmons.
I don't think Pascal will be in that trade. I think they can keep him.
I like him.
I like him too.
They found a hidden gem with everyone getting hurt. He's a dog. What do you go to Villanova?
Dog.
4-year player at Villanova, I think.
But okay, so let's follow.
But Ben Simmons to Golden State is.
Hold on.
Love it.
Greek freak to Golden State.
Greek freak to Golden State. The Warriors are gonna have another dynasty.
But you can't just say that with Bron and AD, and they might add DeMar DeRozan and KD and James. Like, it's a lot going on,
it's
bro.
Gonna be dope.
I love it.
But I like, if Greek freak can go to Golden State, I'm giving Golden State their first three-peat, I think.
I think so. I mean, I got them as front runners as well. I mean, I got them as definitely front runners coming out the West, and the East. If they can add that James to Brooklyn,
that's gonna be scary.
It's hard to count them out,
bro. James to Brooklyn.
Kyrie,
scary.
just Kyrie with that, it's scary.
And then Westbrook, someone who kind of gets overlooked and disrespected for some reason.
Because they don't know basketball. Everybody that loves the game of basketball, played the game of basketball, studied the game of basketball, lived the game of basketball, breathed the game of basketball, understand how important Russell Westbrook is, just as important Oscar Robertson was. And they're very similar. Look at the records, look at their stats. They're similar. If you're going to give Oscar Robertson his props, then give Russ his props. He's just in a different era, and Russ is doing just as much as he was doing.
Russ is a dog. The one thing you hear about Russ is you can't win with him, though. That's the one knock when I hear people talking on TV about it, and you hear the casual fan obviously not understanding how talented he is and what he brings to the table. At the same time, people say you can't win with him.
Well, I guess that's going to be the knock of every player that hasn't won a championship. So I guess they couldn't win with Charles Barkley. I guess they couldn't win with Karl Malone.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So they stop that. If you don't know the game, sit down. Let the experts talk about it.
So we're hearing Russ to a couple of different places. We were hearing the Clippers early on. I think that's kind of died out. But of late, we've heard Russ to New Orleans, Russ to Detroit, Russ to the Knicks.
No.
If anyone goes to the Knicks and you're a star, you got to have someone else going with you.
Ain't enough
Or
there.
you're
Don't do it.
You're just gonna die. Your career's gonna.
Unless they plan on signing Melo back,
fade to black,
and bringing Melo back with
they're gonna
Russ.
need more. They're gonna need more than that.
But I'm just saying, it's gonna have to be something.
And you know, it was crazy. I was talking to CP3 this weekend at the Twins' birthday party. He was talking about potentially going to the Knicks. Obviously, before he got signed today to Phoenix. But he's like, bro, if I'm gonna go to the Knicks, I want the Knicks experience. I want to play in front of Madison Square Garden fans. I want that energy that everyone goes to, because
the Mecca.
Like, you know, outside of that, what is it?
Right.
I mean, what is it? You know what I mean? So I felt that. So for Russ to
it's not the same as spiking out on the sideline.
No, for Russ to go to the Knicks, Russ, you got to take somebody with you, and you need some fans back. And then you hear Detroit.
I like Detroit for the simple fact that he got tools that he's going to have to give up Blake probably. They are right over there, especially in the East, but I would rather him stay West, bro, because the other teams, he's going to be in a position like Melo. They're going to put you in positions where you're on teams that's drowning, teams that's badly trying to make playoffs, and is making it look like you can't play anymore. Then it just pushes you out the league. They've done it to so many players. I don't want that for Russ.
So last place we're hearing is New Orleans. I don't know how well he fits in there. With the Brandon Ingram, who needs the ball in his hand a lot, probably Zoe would be in that trade. You got a Zion out there. I don't know if that's a good fit for him. I think he needs more shooting around him, and they don't particularly have very much shooting outside of, you know, JJ and guys that are coming off the bench. So
New Orleans building from the ground up. You're doing a great job of building from the ground up. You'll be good. Right. Don't rush the process. 3 more years, you'll be great.
Blake Griffin. I think Blake Griffin can end up moving at some point this season to just a good team. You know what I mean? Blake is he's kind of went to Detroit and almost been forgot about. You know, I got some really good years with him with the Clippers, and understanding how talented he still really is, and he's starting to get healthy again. I wouldn't be surprised if Blake goes to someone, you know, right before the trade deadline.
How you like Blake season. Back home in Clippers right now?
I would love it. And quiet as kept. Now the CP's in Phoenix. CP wanted to come back to the Clippers.
I know.
He was talking to people over there. You know, he got T. Lewis, his guy. Chauncey is there. CP was leaning towards the Clippers, but I guess they didn't want to pull that trigger. But seeing Blake back there, or, you know, shit.
I wouldn't say blowing it. I think that's too strong of a word when they just acquired Serge Ibaka. But I will say this. First of all, Montrezl Harrell needs to stop lying to some degree, or people need to stop lying on him, because we've heard about the friction between him and Paul George and how that led to a lack of appreciation he felt he was receiving from the organization as a whole. Now, either that's the story, or there's a whole bunch of people lying on him, because you see those reports all over the place. That's number one. But I look at Serge Ibaka, the acquisition of Serge Ibaka, and I'm certainly not going to say they're blowing it. Here's what I would say. They still need a point guard, and that's no knock against my brother Patrick Beverley. I got love for Patrick Beverley. I think that he's a stout defender. He's an energizer bunny. He's a professional pest, and I think every lineup needs that. But you also need a quintessential point guard to be an extension of the court on the floor and to really, really run that show for you. And Patrick Beverley is not viewed in that regard, not just by the coaches, but also by his teammate. Kawhi Leonard, from what I was told, wants a point guard and wants a prototypical point guard, essentially. It was supposed to be Rajon Rondo. Max, what happened is that Rajon Rondo thought that he was going to end up going to the Clippers. But the Atlanta Hawks, rather, came up with about almost $10 million more than the Clippers were willing to offer him or could offer him. So as a result of that, Bill Duffy, like any other agent that knows what the hell they're doing, particularly in this day and age, is always going to emphasize to you to take the money, because you could always be traded later, but get your money first. That's what they're going to do. And that's the reason why Rajon Rondo is in Atlanta as we speak, because he could always get traded to somebody. But the bottom line is that doesn't mean you'd get the money. Get the money first. That's why Rondo is not with the Clippers. If Rondo was with the Clippers, along with Serge Ibaka, I think free agency would have been a home run for the Clippers. But because that was not what happened, I'm not going to say they're blowing it, but that is something that they need to address.
Well, literally, that's exactly what I was going to say. I thought that we disagreed about this, but apparently we don't. I think they are blowing free agency, and it's not that they're not doing a good job. Serge Ibaka is a great pickup for them. Versatile defender who can stretch the floor to go next to Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. It's a perfect fit, especially when you still have Morris and you have depth and size and defense and shooting. But what they are missing is a floor general to make that offense more cohesive. It's not like station to station, half-court offense. Kawhi Leonard is a lot of things, and he's an above-average passer even at this point in his career for his position. But that's different than being like a point guard. You know, if you're going to run your offense through Kawhi Leonard, that's fine. You can do it. In fact, you know, you can do it to great effect. But to beat the Lakers, you should have a dynamic playmaker who's not Kawhi Leonard, right? So had they, for example, made a move and somehow acquired Drew Holiday, I'd be thinking about the Clippers differently right now. Right now, I know Clippers are kind of the hot pick as the second best team in the West. But as you know, earlier in the show, I like the Mavericks better if they're healthy than the Clippers. I don't think the Clippers have done enough to address the issue, which is Patrick Beverley, who's a nice player, a 3-and-D guy who's short, so he's a point guard, is not a dynamic playmaker. So Rondo, I thought, was heading for the Clippers. Stephen A., you gave information as to why that didn't happen, and he would have been an excellent fit on the Clippers, especially since he's playoff Rondo. But Drew Holiday or someone like that, there were other options that you could have fit onto this team and gone like, wait a minute, the Clippers are a real threat. And I don't feel that way at this moment.
I agree with Stephen A. I can't call it a disaster because you are able to sign Serge Ibaka and you did re-sign the Morris twin. But at the same time, I think we're looking at it from a standpoint of that Lakers are really going out like they fell short last year because their counterpart down the hallway, the Lakers are really active and pursuing and getting who they want. I think it makes the Clippers kind of look like, man, are the Clippers dragging their feet? What's going on? I still think they got some time. Obviously, they have until the trade deadline, but I don't want to beat a dead horse. They need to address the point guard-ish situation there. They need a floor general. It wasn't Rondo. I talked to CP before CP went to Phoenix, and CP, had interest in going back to the Clippers. They didn't want to pull that trigger, so the Clippers need to address the point guard play. And then there was, there is stuff floating around about the chemistry in that locker room last season. So whether Montrez was the blame of it, I'm sure you can't put all of it on it. They decided to part ways with him. But, I think number one issue is they need to address that point guard situation and then try to get on the same page. Because I think last year we were waiting for them to hit that chemistry mark last year because we just figured they'd been injured and hadn't got a chance to play together. But there was more behind the scenes that we didn't really know until now.
Well, Matt, it's interesting that you bring that up because a few weeks ago, I talked about the Clippers wanting CP3 or Rondo. Obviously, CP3 would have been the preference, and I also know he's got a great relationship with Ty Lue, and as a result, that had him strongly interested in returning to the Clippers because of the relationship with Ballmer as well, who he still has dinner with a lot of times. But here's the reality. This is what puts the real onus on Kawhi Leonard, in my estimation. And I really want to hear what you think about this, Matt. The Clippers gave up all those assets. It wasn't just to get Kawhi. It's because Kawhi insisted he wanted Paul George. It wasn't enough for him to come to the Clippers. He sat up there and said, if you don't do what it takes to get my man Paul George here with me, I'm going to go to the Lakers and join LeBron and AD. Ballmer couldn't let that happen. So they mortgaged the farm and to get him, which is that's their decision. It's not his fault per se, but because of that, they didn't have the assets necessary to now give Oklahoma City to get CP3. And so not only did you use those assets to acquire Paul George, it prohibited you from having the assets necessary to get CP3. And that's why I look at Kawhi Leonard and say, excuse me, if anybody is on the clock, if anybody is on it, like we should have our eye on him, it's him. Because you're the guy that can play, but are you that galvanizing leader? And on top of it all, are you willing to accept the fact, damn, I know I'm a two-time champion and a two-time NBA Finals MVP, but they did all of this just to get me, and I didn't even get us to the conference finals. What you gonna do about that? I think it's fair to ask Kawhi Leonard, what the hell are you going to do about that? When you talk about him, Max, being the best player in the world, which you was talking about before you came to your senses after he lost in the postseason, I say this to you, Max Kellerman, and I'll throw it to you, Matt, as well. We sit up there and we look at everybody else. Kawhi Leonard has never been in the eye of the storm as the man. Let's put him there and see what he's got. What's wrong with that?
Well, first of all, Kawhi put himself there when he opted not to go to the Lakers. Instead of joining a team where it would have been impossible for anyone to beat that team, and it really wouldn't have proven anything, AD, LeBron, and Kawhi, he decided to challenge LeBron head up. Now, it didn't work out. He didn't even get to the conference finals, but no one has to put him in the eye of the storm. He put himself, and he trolled LeBron all season.
Hey, Matt.
Let me say this quickly, Matt. It's not an either-or. It's not an either-or, Stephen A. Like, he got Paul George there, and they didn't have the assets to go get CP3. CP3 and Kawhi is not enough to beat AD and LeBron. 4 great players, 2 of them are taller, much taller than the other 2, and a little better, right? CP3 with Kawhi and Paul George, now you're talking. So that's what I mean by they're blowing it, Matt. There's no CP3 on the team. He switched teams, but he didn't switch to the Clippers, right? Drew Holiday was on the move, didn't go to the Clippers. Even Rondo didn't go to the Clippers. They didn't get what they actually needed so far.
And I agree from a standpoint of, Kawhi hasn't shouldered enough blame. When you're the superstar on the team and they go out and get who you want, which is Paul George. And I haven't given up on that combination. First of all, they didn't play together enough last year. But at the same time, I think after one season and a crazy season as it was, you can't give up on Paul George. We just had Paul George on All the Smoke last week. He's energized, out on a mission. So I'm excited to see what he does this year. But at the end of the day, the glaring weakness on this team is the point guard position, and they did not address it yet. Hopefully they still have some time, and you always know there can be a dark horse trade that no one's talking about or a move that no one's talking about that may happen, and they have up until free agency. But at this point, I don't think it's so much that the Clippers have failed. It's just that the Lakers are doing as if they lost last year.